Okay, now again, today's lesson is more difficult than yesterday because we don't have a common denominator. All right, so we have to find a common denominator, and then we have to decide if we're going to add or subtract, and then we have to decide if it's positive or negative. So that's why this is a little bit more difficult. All right, so please take your time. All right, remember what I said, there's no rush, all right, to get through the problem. All right, I'm going to go through a couple of them first, and I'm going to see how you think you're doing. All right, and then I'm going to let everybody else get involved, and they can kind of help me as we're going. All right? Yeah, just a minute. All right. So, again, question number 2. All right, now, generally what we do is when we are adding and subtracting fractions, what I would like for you to do is we generally like to write vertically, not horizontally. All right? And the reason why we work vertically is because it's just easier to add the fractions. All right? Now, for question number 2, all right? For question number 2, we just have to first find a common denominator. All right? And the common denominator is what? 18. Now, what I'm going to remind you of are the 9 and the 6 relatively prime? The answer is no. The reason why we say they're not relatively prime is because there is a factor that is common with both of them. 3. So you can't just multiply 9 times 6 together. You could multiply 9 times 6 together, but then at the end you're going to have to end up what? Reducing. All right? So it's always better to understand that term, are they relatively prime? All right? Since they're not relatively prime, you can't just multiply them together. Now, all the problems are up here on the board, so you really don't need your iPads out. All right? I want the iPads closed. All right? I don't want you working ahead. I want you to listen. All right? Close the iPads. What? Well, that's what we're getting ready to talk about. Okay? So somebody said the common denominator was 18. Now, in my opinion, I said vertically is better. So we're going to do negative 5/9 plus 1/6. Now, how do we know it was 18? Because 18 is a common multiple of 9 and 6. All right? So what do I multiply 9 by? 2. So I multiplied this by 2. So that means I multiply the top by 2, which makes it what? 10. Now I would prefer that you write negative 10. All right, then I'm going to multiply the second fraction by what? By 3. I'm going to multiply the second fraction by 3, which makes it what? 3 over 18. Yes. Yeah, we multiplied this by 3 and multiplied by 3. No, because that is a common factor. All right, that's what can be divided by 9 can be divided by 3 and 6 can be divided by 3. We're trying to find the common multiple. So if you're doing that, for example, it'd be 9, 18, 27, 6, 12, 18, kind of like that. Right? And so this was what was common. All right? You did that now. Okay, so the common denominator we found was 18. Now it's just a matter of, do you know the rules for adding and subtracting? So this is negative 10/18 plus 3/18, which is going to be negative 7 over 18. Chair right. All right, now I'm trying to make sure that you ask me questions now rather than later. If you're not sure how I got negative 7 over 18, we can talk. Yes? What did you do?
I did like 9 and 6.
That's what we already talked about that. All right? Yeah, it just means at the end you have to simplify. I prefer, because you're super smart, I prefer you just say the common denominator was 18, not 54. Right? Because there is another common denominator, 36. right? We try to make it smaller so I don't have to reduce. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I really want you to kind of listen to. All right? What?
Yeah.
No, you're not doing it in your head. All right? Absolutely not. All right? Because sooner there are going to be problems that you can't do in your head. Right now, I'm just showing you the procedure. I want you to show me your work. That's what you do. All right, what?
I can show my work, but do I like this is kind of easy like for the common, like for the large denominator? But I just write it or do I have to do it?
Because I'm pretty impressed. Some of you think you're so good at this. You can. I mean that sincerely. I'm happy that you can do it. Great. I really appreciate that. I'm just saying part of my job is I have to make sure you can do it correctly, right? I don't know who can do it correctly and who can't, right? So part of following directions is do what I'm doing. I'm doing it up on the board. I feel like if I'm doing it, you should have to do it, right? Now, in the future, I promise you, if you can do it in your head, I'm going to say go ahead and do it. But right now, I don't know what you know and what you don't know. You hear me? Same thing with next year. Next year, I'll know you better. So if I think you're brilliant with the math in your head, I'm okay with that. All right, because that's the way I was. I can do this. I can do that in my head easily. All right, but I'm showing you, demonstrating. Okay. All right. Plus, it's just one day. All right. All right. Here we go. 4. Let's find 4 now. All right. So on this, all right, this one's pretty straightforward, just like last year. 8 and 5/12 plus 11 and 1/4. So the common denominator is obviously what, guys? 12. Mr. Caruso?
Oh, I just got it, yeah.
Right? 8 and 5/12 plus 11 and how many 12ths? Say it.
Oh,
3/12. Yes, of course, of course. Right? I much prefer you just do it because you interrupt me every time you ask me if you can do something. So my final answer here is what, guys?
19 and 8/12.
19 and 8/12. The problem is I can do what with the, yes. So we would reduce that
You
to
can reduce 4, so
Right.
it would be 3 over 2. 2 over 3, sorry.
2 over 3. Good. How did I do what? Are you having trouble with this part of the problem?
Oh, no, no,
All right, everybody okay with that? All right, here we go. 6. All right, 6 is kind of the same principle here. You got to be careful with a common denominator. Xavier, what's our common denominator going to be? 24. Thank you very much. All right, so it's going to be 4 and, yeah, listen to me. You go home and listen to the video. You can hear yourself the whole time. All right, I am telling you, you are interrupting my class. You're not doing it anymore. All right, I will have someone come down and get you in a minute. You're not interrupting. Everyone else is quiet. You can be quiet, or you will not be in here. All right, so who was telling me the common denominator? Good, Xavier. So the first fraction is going to be how many?
4 and 9, 4.
Good. Beautiful. So now what? Shh. And? Exactly. And I can't reduce that, right? What? Just pray. Stop. Concentrate. Let him ask a question if he needs it. All right? So I appreciate you trying to help. Don't right now. He's listening. He's got to learn to listen. What? Yeah. because there was a common denominator. That's why I was fussing at you to listen. There's a common denominator with 8 and 12. What number is divisible by both 8 and by 12? No, 4 is not divisible by 8. 4 is a factor of 8. 24 and 24 are both divisible by 8 and by 12. That's how we're finding that number. All right? Now, pay attention on the next problem, and you can do better.
So when we add at the end, will we be adding like what was reduced or just the original?
I'm not sure what you're asking me, but here's what I added, just to make sure. This is what I added.
So we wouldn't add what was reduced.
I don't know what you mean, add what was reduced. What does that mean?
We reduced it.
Where did I reduce it? What I did was, let me see if I think I might be able to tell you. What I did was I changed this fraction here and this fraction here into equivalent forms so I could add them. You can't add fractions unless they have common denominators. Jack, I hope you're listening because I'm trying to explain it to you. Shh. You don't need to repeat it. Liliana, you understand that now? Right, so I'm changing 8 and 12 to 24 because I'm going to multiply this by 2, and that gives me the same denominator. If I multiply this by 3, now I have a what? I have a common denominator. You agree with that? All right, stay with me now, everybody. All right, it's getting a little bit harder as we go down the page. All right? What? Just let me get through a couple, and I said we're going to take care of it. Your job right now is to make sure you're following along with me, because there's still a couple kids that are a little shaky. All right? So I want to go ahead and say it. So on this one right here, I have 3/5 minus 9/10. All right? When I have 3/5 minus 9/10, we don't have a common denominator. So what would be the common denominator? 10, exactly. So I need to change the top fraction into tenths. So what would I multiply it by? Good, so that becomes a 6/10 minus 9/10. What's 6 minus 9? What type of 3? Yes. So I have -3/10. You happy with that? All right. Jack, are you in the game now? Okay, good. All right, Emiliana?
Yeah.
You good on that? Connor? And it's okay to say no, but sit up and follow along.
Yeah.
You good with that? Yeah. All right. Here we go. Let's check out number 10. All right. Now, on number 10, all right, I have -1 1/3 minus 4 2/7. Are we adding the fractions or are we subtracting the fractions? What are we doing? We are definitely adding. All right, the reason why we're adding is because they're both what? They're both negative. All right, so now again, I'm going to write -1. I'm going to write -1 1/3 minus 4 2/7. Now, are these numbers relatively prime? Are the denominators relatively prime? Jack,
Well, I just want
I don't care. I'm asking you a question. All right, this is where this is how we learn. All right, I'm on question number 10. I just asked you a question. Are these fractions relatively prime? Are the denominators relatively prime? Yes or no? What do you think?
Yes.
They are relatively prime. All right, so if they are relatively prime, what can I do to the two denominators, Connor? Just do what? Just multiply them. That's how you come up with a common denominator. All right, now let me explain something. The reason why you're a little frustrated is because you haven't been listening. Okay, now get on your thinking cap and let's go. Come on. Join us. All right? Let me ask the question. Then at the end, I'll say who has a question. Then you can raise your hand. All right? So the common denominator is what? 21. So here we go. We're going to put a 21, and we're going to put a 21. All right? So, Sienna, what am I multiplying the first fraction by? Good. So I have to multiply. Very good. All right? So it's negative 1 and 7 over 21. The next fraction, what do I have to multiply by, Sienna? And so, I'm multiplying this by what? 3. Yes. There you have it. Now we have common denominators. Jack, what's your question?
The question is for multiplying is like that, but wouldn't it be all line and so
Our answer is going to be negative, Jack. Oh my goodness, Jack. I promise you, I'm not going to make a mistake on these fractions. That's why I'm telling you, hey, you got to listen better, buddy. All right, there's no reason to try to correct me. I didn't make a mistake on that. Sienna, finish. What am I doing with these? Adding or subtracting? You're what? It sounds like we're subtracting because there's a minus sign. But are we really subtracting? What are we doing? Because they're both what? They're both negative. So what do I have? You are awesome, kiddo. That's what I'm saying, Jack. All right? If they're both negative, what do? We add them. All right? But it still is what, Jack? Still is negative. Thank you, Jack. All right? Now, remember, they're supposed to be getting a little bit harder as we go down. All right? So again, guys, look at your paper. Is it spread out or is it squished all together? All right? You shouldn't have all the numbers written out with one line in between because you don't know how big or how small the problem is. All right? Every time you should just be starting with number 12 now. And you should write number 12 on your paper. If you've already listed them all out, it's okay. It's just not how it should be done. All right? Every problem, I don't know how big it is. All right? We're working on spacing in here and writing neater. All right? That's what we're doing so we can eliminate mistakes. All right? I'm on 12 now. All right? Now, I have 412. Let me hear Sean. So 12 and 1/2 minus 6 and 3/8. Explain this, please. Right? Okay, so 12 and 1/2 is the same as what? Good. Stop there. Does anybody have an issue with that being 12 and 4/8? Minus 6 and 3/8. So tell me. 6 and 1/8. Very, very nice. Very nice. Okay, Grace, why don't you help me with the next one? All right, let's check it out. Everybody look at 14, please. What? Who said what? You good? All right, here we go with number 14, Grace. So can you tell me what the common denominator is? Yes, very good. All right, so do I have to do anything to the first fraction? No. What about the second fraction? Good, so I end up with, right? Perfect. Now I'm adding or subtracting those. Very good. And what do I get when I subtract? You are awesome. That is very good. 6 over 35 so far. You got that one in pretty good shape? Tell me.
Oh,
You're good, right?
yeah.
All right. Ms. Jacobson, you ready? All right, you get to tell me about 16. Now, again, let's look at this real quick. I don't like this right here. So what is that really? Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you. So let's write this down. -5/8 minus 8/9. Do you hear that? Now, are these relatively prime? Yes. So what can I do with 8 and 9? Yep, all we do is make it 72. So the first fraction is going to be, that is correct. And then, good. Don't forget the what, though? Yes. So now am I adding or subtracting? Adding them. What do I get? Beautiful. Over. I'm happy with you, kiddo. Perfect. -109 over 72. And that's a fine answer right there. We don't have to convert it into a mixed fraction. We do not have to convert it to a mixed fraction. Everybody okay with that? All right, Max, 18. What's the common denominator here? I'll let you write it down. Ooh, that's a good job already. 40 is nice. Are they relatively prime? Do you know what that means? Yes. Yes, they are relatively prime because 8 and 5 have no common factors. So that's a good job so far. 40. So what do I multiply the first fraction by? And so that's going to become, wow. What about the bottom one? Good job. So that's going to become, see? All right. Now what's 35 minus 16? 19. Wow, nice. Sound different today. One, because you're paying attention, because you're up here. All right, use your seat from now on. Stay right here. No, you're not. Trust me. That's bad support right there.
Oh, I have not done my job.
No, you've not. All right, let me hear. Ready? All right, go. Tell me about 20.
So the common denominator.
Common denominator is 15. Are they relatively prime?
Yes.
Yes. So the first fraction becomes what?
Well,
Yeah.
15 over 6.
Good.
And 15 over, 5 over 15.
Good. So now what?
So then you subtract them.
So what do I get? Yes, -11 over 15. Anybody have any questions with that? Anybody? All right, does anybody think, good for you?
No, not on this one, but on 17 and 16.
I'll do 16.
Shh.
What's the matter?
I got 100. I got -100.
Shh, let her finish. It's what?
Like on the.
What's the difference? So look at the previous step. So now what's the difference? Right. So this is all I'm saying. You did fantastic. Listen to me. She's doing something I wish everyone would do. They're checking their answers. I don't want you not to trust me. I like Jack, even though I had to fuss at him a little bit. I like him trying to correct me. There's not a problem with you trying to correct me. All right. I really don't mind. It's just when you're not paying attention, that's when I get frustrated. All right. So I love what you just said. All right. But what did we now understand? What do you now understand? This is a what? This is an improper, which I said was okay to have that as the answer. If you wrote it as what they did, is it still the same answer? Yeah, it's just in a different form. Now you understand, right? Yeah, don't be afraid, guys. I mean it. Sometimes I get a little upset because some of you are not listening all the time. All right? But I want you guys to challenge me. If you don't know something, get your hand up and say, come on, man. Help me out a little bit. I'm the one who wants to get smarter. All right? That's what we're doing.
A number around 2 to 5, it means that they both don't have a number similar.
That's exactly right. That's simple. A number is a factor.
Okay.
Right? That's the term you're looking for. It doesn't have a common factor. All right? Jack, that's good now, okay? All right, here we go. So now we're back on track, right, Emiliano? All right, good job, girl. All right, so now I'm on 22. All right, Connor, I'm going to let you do this one. All right, are these relatively prime? No, thank you. All right, so what's the common denominator? Shh, you can do it. I'll let you do it. Good job, buddy. Feels good, doesn't it? -3/4 minus 5/6. So if I do a 12, what does this become? What type of 9? And the bottom fraction becomes what kind of 10? Right. So your final answer? -19/12. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, Jack. I appreciate you. All right, let's do 24, Jack. No, I mean 26. 24 was a word problem. All right?
Okay, so you have 2/3 and 7/12. The common thing between those two is 12.
Very good.
So you keep the one on the bottom.
Right.
And then do 3 times 4 2 times 4, so you get 8 over 12.
Beautiful. Hold on a minute. This is what I'm saying now. All right, you're not getting it right now because you went too fast.
Well, I'm skipping the whole number.
Well, so are we adding these? Shh. Are we adding these together? What are we supposed to be doing? We're subtracting them. All right, so now what's the answer?
1/12.
And yes, 1 and 1/12. Now, is it positive or is it negative, Jack?
Negative.
Now, do you understand? Listen to me. Look up and I want you to see me. Hey, listen to me. You understand what I mean about slow down? You know how to do that, but you were going too fast. When you go too fast, you make what? Yes, slow down. Slow down. You have a chance to be brilliant if you slow down. All right? No reason to be in a big hurry. All right. 28 now. Gray. This one's the tricky one, okay? Now, which one should I put on the top? The 6 or the 11? And why? Am I adding the fractions or subtracting them? So why do you want 6 on the top?
Because your minds are subtracting.
Yeah. Right, so wouldn't it be better to have the 11 on the top? Because you're subtracting the fractions, correct? Trust me on this. Listen, guys, this is something that's going to help you a bunch. When you're subtracting, always put the bigger whole number on the top. All right? Because eventually we're going to have to borrow. If you don't do that, you're going to mess up the borrowing. You hear me? All right? So I want everybody to write down on their paper -11 7/8 plus 6 6/7. All right, everybody's got to do that.
Okay, so the denominators are going to go to 6.
Yes.
So 11 7/8 will become 11 49 56.
Thank you.
And then 6 and 6/7 would go to 6 and 48 over 56.
You're awesome. And then what?
And subtract
Yep.
48 from 49 and 6 out of 11. And so you're going to get 5 and 1 over 56.
Is that the answer? Shh. Is that the right answer?
Oh, no.
What is it? Yes, sir. Good job. Good job. Very good. -5 and 1 over 56. Now, hopefully you understand why it's easier to have the larger whole number on the top. All right, it's easier to do the subtraction. I'm not. Go ahead.
Confused by that because I go this way.
Yeah. All right. Trust me, fractions are easy to do vertically. All right. All right, let's keep going. Let's have Brooke. What would you do next? Tell me what to do here. Right?
So,
24. Is there a better one? 12 is better. If you do 24, is it okay? We would have to do what? Yeah, simplify. Okay, so it doesn't matter. But common denominator is 12. So it's going to be 8 and 3 over 12.
10 over 12.
Okay, so now we have a problem. What's our problem? Well, that's okay. But I'm trying to do 3 minus 10, so what do I have to do? Yes, it could be negative, but listen, here's where I have to be careful. Remember when you did subtraction last year, if you couldn't do the subtraction, you had to borrow. Do you remember this? The 8 becomes a what? Now, do you remember what did we do with these two numbers? You always did what when you borrowed? Does anybody remember? Yes, you added them together because we're technically adding 1, and 1 would be 12 over 12, right? So the 3 doesn't become a 13. The 3, I want you to listen to her. The 3 crosses out and becomes a, that is correct, 15. All right? 3 plus 12. You add the numerator and the denominator. Okay? That's the rule. There you go. Okay, that's just a really good review problem about when you have to borrow. All right, now the reason why we're borrowing, I just want to make sure you guys understand that. 3/12 plus 1 is the same as 3/12 plus 12 over 12, which is the same as what? 15 over 12. So there's a little shortcut that we teach kids once they understand that concept, that whenever you want to borrow, you always just add the numerator and denominator. All right? All right, Tucker, let's go. Let's knock one out here. 32.
32.
Am I adding these or am I subtracting these?
You are going to be so adding them.
Adding, thank you.
Alright, so you have 5 and 3/5,
Mm-hmm.
and then 7 and 1/6.
So common denominator?
The common denominator is going to be 30. So you do, and the top one is 18 over 30, 5 and 18 over 30. And then the denominator is, sorry, the denominator is 7 and 5 over 30.
So now,
So you end up with 12,
what type of 12?
positive 12.
What type of 12?
Oh, no, negative 12.
And?
Negative 12 and 23 over 30.
Beautiful. Negative 12 and 23 over 30. Feels good. Okay? Does anybody feel like it would be good for them to do the next one if they're a little shaky? Everybody's feeling pretty confident? All right, let's look at 34. I'm going to let Angelina do this one. Oh, I'm sorry, number 40. Okay? So, the double negatives make it what? Okay, so?
It would be negative 3, so,
Okay.
plus 2 and 4 and 7. And the denominator will be 35. And so it will be negative 3 and 7. No, it will be negative 3 and 14.
Good job, kiddo.
And 2 and 2 and 20 over 35.
Good job. Now, are we adding or subtracting?
Add. Subtract.
Because this is a positive and a negative, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we do what?
Subtract.
Now, again, I want to make sure everybody's hearing me. Just because I say plus, does that mean we're adding?
No.
No, we do not. All right, now, what's the problem here? Can I subtract 14 minus 20?
No.
Because I have to do what?
You have to borrow.
Borrow. So the 3 becomes a what?
2.
And the 14 becomes a?
4.
Yes, thank you for listening. That is exactly right. Does everybody see why that's 14? I mean, that's 49. Everybody okay with that? We add the numerator and denominator, right?
Yes.
You understand me? Okay. Now, let's subtract. What do I get?
It'll be negative 29 over 35.
You are brilliant. Thank you, girl. That was very good. Yes. All right, let's check you out. Let's do 42. Okay. So now the double negatives make a what? There we go. All right, so now you got a kind of a tricky one, so I'm going to write this out. 5/12 plus 12 and 13 over 18. So what's a common? Uh-oh, we're out of time. Listen, guys, don't do any more evens. Just do the what?
Odds.
Just do the odds for homework, please. Hopefully you feel better about it. If you're having a little trouble or if you're feeling a little, look at the solutions. They kind of work it out for you. All right? Very, very good job today. We got a little rough start, Jack, but we're in good shape now, right? Good job, bud. That was much better.